The reckoning. It's come. It's not quite Ragnarok, but I'm starting to see that the mainstream newspaper outlets, at least, have noticed something. Something has happened since the 1990s. I know, big step for that, but we'll come and see it.
Finally.
Yeah. We'll start off by mentioning on Lotus.com, of course, being the census data proves Britain is not a nation of immigrants because the data is just demonstrable. And, well, you can show it to your dad and be like, you remember? Yeah? Well, I've got it in data.
But if you think about it, if you go back 1,500 years, your ancestors might have come over on a boat sometime, so technically you're an immigrant.
Have you moved house? Whatever, immigrant. You think I'm joking? There's actually a BBC bite-size video for the kids to explain migration, and they label the Celts immigrants. It's like, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what they do. What was that one they did recently? Was it Paul Dreschler, some chancellor or lord or something, did a BBC interview where he basically said, "Oh, if you go back far enough, we're all immigrants, so we might as well open the borders."
Just no thinking whatsoever. But we'll get to the new article, because the one here from the, I think it's the Times. The cost of Brexit, red tape, tensions, and lack of labour. Now, tensions and red tape, that was kind of the point. Didn't want to be integrated with Europe, and don't like them. So, fair points. The last one there really confuses me, though. Lack of labour in the UK. Because, of course, we've seen the immigration graph, and it ain't pretty. In fact, it's the highest it's ever been for the previous 2 years, ever on record. I mean, when we were literally being invaded by foreign armies, or mass migration of Normans, or the Huguenots, or whichever stupid migration period someone wants to bring up and be like, aren't we all foreigners?
Yeah, I just found it here. It was Paul Dreschler, the chair of the International Chambers of Commerce UK, saying it's important we change nasty narratives of in Britain about migration
Facts.
by saying every single person living in Britain today is the descendant of an immigrant.
It's not true.
I mean, if you go back once again, thousands of years, maybe.
It just pains me. It's a bit like, yeah, you immigrated here, right? From Syria?
No.
No, yeah, it's that simple. Literally just ask the person next to you.
I just pointed out, well, if we're all just as British as each other, that means that all of these new immigrants, these new British people, are equally culpable for the crimes of empire, and therefore should join me in paying reparations.
But the idea that labour is in short supply. Well, I'll take their argument. They say, although British workers stepped up, Kate Nicholas, the chief executive of UK Hospitality, so it's a trade body, said that it was not as rapidly or as comprehensively as we'd like to have seen. She added, like the rest of the economy, you're seeing record vacancies. We don't have enough labour. Part of the problem is the youthful demographic of the workforce. The international workers who have fled have left gaps, and mostly students who have come in are only working 20 hours a week because they're part-time. Now, none of this is obviously true, because we've seen the data as to who's coming here. She continues, some elements of the labour shortage cannot be blamed on Brexit, however. I don't think any of it could. COVID or inflation. We always knew there was going to be a problem as we had a dramatic drop in the birth rate in the 2000s, Nicholas said. Because something happened in the 1990s, which made raising a family more difficult. Who knows? We'll never know. But let's get to the facts of immigration, and this is my point of interest, which is the reckoning coming to normies who work for normie outlets, who apparently don't have many brain cells, but I've got some. So, here we have it. If we go down to the graphs of the most interesting thing, this is an article talking about immigration, of course. It says here, changing flags, and these graphs are the most useful thing that someone has made. So you can
I
see
still
there.
hate the way these are formatted. They look terrible.
Yeah, they also don't go back far enough.
Just give me a bar chart, please.
But there you can see here, this is over time immigration from different areas of the world. And the big thing here being, oh, good lordy, that newest couple of years of data. You know, line go up. I mean, that really is bringing a new definition of line go up.
Well, some lines have gone down, which are, generally speaking, the European immigration.
Yeah, and for some reason the government was like, you know what, I love India. So they wrote in here, the data. But you can see that apparently during lockdown, you can see that period where it goes down to about 300,000. That's when we need to be on target to actually achieve our target. You know, the one we've had for the last 20 years? Tens of thousands.
It's still too high as a target, but okay.
Yeah, we need to actually have the whole country locked down as the equivalent of the... I mean, I still don't get that. We were all locked in our houses, but the borders were open. Somehow enough to have 300,000 people come in.
Well, it just made it easier. All the border patrol people were at home, presumably.
Yeah, God.
Essential workers? No.
So they say in here, next month marks the 20 years since the 2003 Ascension deal was signed. which the following year gave 73 million people from 10 EU states the right to live and work in Britain. I still can't believe anyone signed that back in the day. I mean, I'm sorry, it is just weird to me, the idea of, oh yeah, this will be a good idea. No consequences from this whatsoever. I mean, we'll get into the predictions at the time in a minute. It was ridiculously naive. So they say here...
I don't think it was naive. I think it was intentional.
But they say, Polish name, sorry lads, love Poland. Names.
Siuniak?
Grzegorz Pozienkiewicz over here. He was one of the hundreds of thousands who made the move. Now, I don't know where they write hundreds of thousands. It was 2 million. So 20 hundreds of thousands. So the guy writing this, I kind of don't trust. He was just, it was hundreds of thousands.
Sorry, go back up to that original graph for me, please, John. No, the other one, the one we were looking at.
You want to look at the new arrivals graph now?
Oh, the new arrivals graph.
But you can see there, these are the predictions after Brexit of what would happen. And of course, none of those happened. Instead, we have the actual, which is massive spike.
But also, if we go back up, to that original graph, I just want to look at something here, which is 2003. So, seems after 2003, it was mainly accession countries like Poland being the main ones, which would have been European countries made up the vast majority of that immigration. So, it's not great. We still don't want an extra hundreds of thousands of people coming in. But European migrants...
It's not Zimbabwe.
It's not Zimbabwe. They're going to be easier to integrate into the country, aren't they?
That is true. But
and it's not as far for them to go if they want to go home.
Yeah, that's true as well. But if we go to the Taking Back Control graph, which is the third one in this article, they say there's 3 reasons. Number 1, who knows? Number 2, Ukraine and Hong Kong, being the 2 and 3 there. Should we talk about the who knows? I don't know if you can notice. Which one of those colours goes sharply up after the change? It's the bottom one. Work visas and student visas massively explode. Who could have figured out why? Why would it be suddenly massively easier to come here on a work visa? It's almost like we redefined skilled work, and we didn't do it well. You see here, they say, who are the new migrant workers? In 2022, as before, Home Office visa data shows the most common arrivals are Indian nationals. They always top the charts, somehow. Just amazing. They
always got to fill up call centres.
I mentioned this last time when we went through the data, but they didn't give us the full breakdown, whereas some of the times apparently has. So they say here, but some of the biggest increases have been among those filling NHS posts. Nigerians received 4,000 work visas in 2019, but 32,000 this year. It's just 10 times increase.
Yep, brilliant.
Don't worry about it. Mainly thanks to the skilled health and social care visas, because why train your own workers? Why give British kids a future? Good questions that can't be answered.
Well, will the line go up?
Well, Zimbabwe, a country we have wonderful relations with. In fact, I believe their population is massively pro-British. They love white people, I'm told.
I think we had some kind of camps set up over there, holiday camps, back in the 1960s and 70s. And
I mean, we didn't set up any camps.
No, we didn't set up any camps, but there were definitely white people over there.
Yeah, and then
there were.
Well, I've just been told that Zimbabwe. So this is a funny story.
And then all of a sudden, England decided it didn't like those anymore.
So I'll keep it the pretense, which is that Zimbabwe obviously is not too fond of the white man or the British. But a friend of mine I met. He has a family who work in Malawi. And Malawi borders Zimbabwe. And Malawi is the exact opposite, which is the dictator that took over there was massively pro-British and quite a bit racist. So
what, to his own people?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So they were massively pro-British and pro-Western, so their economy didn't become somewhere where people starved to death. Instead, they thrived, which was weird, I know. But instead, on top of that, he opened up the Eton of Africa. This is how, pro-old-timey, I'm going to put it, they were. And his number 1 manifesto promise for when he opened the university was, none of the teachers will be from Africa.
Now, listen.
Well, anyway,
I'm not saying anything. All I'm going to say is that probably would improve academic results.
At the time, certainly. But my point is not to be like racism-based, no. My point is that, well, of all of the faults of this man and his weirdness, if you wanted to take a load of people from Malawi who have been brainwashed from day one to love Britain because the guy in charge loves Britain, local dictator doing a pro-Britain job, I think that's probably not the worst idea in the world. I don't see how they could go wrong. Whereas people from country who have been taught that Britain is the source of all of their ills, and trust me, Mugabe didn't do nothing, I'm a little bit worried, I'll be frank. I mean, I hope this isn't like when I warned about the Afghan pedos coming here, and then it turns out there were quite a lot of Afghan pedos who are now here. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, who could have seen that one coming?
Maybe Zimbabwe has really just gotten over the whole thing, and now they are willing to accept that Mugabe was in the wrong. I did happen to meet a Zimbabwe lady when I was in Afghanistan. She thought he'd had a mixed time in office. I wouldn't describe mass famine as a mixed time in office, but whatever.
Well, was it more good than bad? Oh, we got a Mao situation.
But anyway, in 2019, there were 993 Zimbabweans who were given a long-term visa to come and work here. Now 23,000. 1 year we changed the law, and in 1 year we went from 900 to 23,000, which is only going to go up, presumably.
Yep.
Great. The Philippines...
And just to point out as well that a lot of the time, if these people are coming over on work visas, we're doing this because they always say, oh, we've got employment crisis, we've got record low unemployment, while we've still got all of these positions and jobs that need to be filled. Yeah. I've covered before on the podcast that what actually happens is a lot of these unemployment figures will be taken up by ghost jobs, where companies will just post job advertisements online even though they don't need to fill a position, mainly because they just want to make it look like they're trying to hire for the sake of their own staff members, or to make it look like they're doing well for their own management. Another thing that happens, and this is something I've seen covered recently on Scrump and Evelyn's podcast, was where they were talking about economic inactivity being a major factor in all of this. It's not that you're unemployed, it's that you are economically inactive, and there is a ridiculous number of people, native Britons included,
3 million, something like that, isn't it?
Probably more than that, who are classified as economically inactive, because in doing so, if you're labelled economically inactive rather than unemployed, it makes all of the figures, the government figures, look a lot better on spreadsheets.
But anyway, so we now have the Philippines being fourth there. So number one's India. That's the kind of... So of all the immigrants, where are we getting them from? Number one, India. Number two, Nigeria. Number three, Zimbabwe, which just came out of nowhere and took the number 3 spot. And then the Philippines.
Brilliant.
I'm not being funny, but I think number 3 might be more of a problem than people think it is. But that will be my prediction for the future. Many of these countries already have connections with Britain, they write, but many do not. Britain typically relies on Ukrainians for seasonal farming work. Well, we don't have any of those, do we? Got 200,000 of them in 1 year. Feel like we'll be fine, lads. But no, they instead say that since the Russian invasion, the British government started granting en masse temporary visas from people from Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan.
But if we don't take all of these people in, Callum, who's going to scrub Kelly Osbourne's toilets?
I mean, I'm so sick of this mindset.
Who's going to serve Pret?
I mean, I made this meme video a while ago where it's just some like crappy TikTok music alongside the farming machinery that you keep seeing in your Facebook videos being really productive. Because I'm so sick of endlessly being like...
I saw you post this one.
If we don't have human beings picking the cotton, then how will we pick the cotton? It's like, with machines. You know how we did the Industrial Revolution?
Sorry,
we invented it?
When you say that, I want you to say that again, but in your southern slave owner.
No.
Oh.
But that's the people who are arguing instead for mass migration in my mind with the southern slave owner accent. They're just like, well, who else will do it? It's like, you do know what year we live in. I mean, I hate to be the current year guy, but me no have slave markets to pick crops no more. Me have tractor. And tractor go burr. And yes, a lot of this equipment, I mean, some of this here is a bit silly because it's like those crops that were the robots picking it. I don't know how efficient that is, but the rest of it's obviously efficient.
And if you don't want to spend masses of money on this, there are also, I'm sure, English people who would be happy to earn money over a summer doing this.
I'm far more for the productivity solution because I know a lot of people will be saying like the machinery is incredibly expensive. Yeah, no doubt. Of course, all farming machinery is goddamn expensive. In which case, if you're the British government, should you give loads of money in grants for farmers to make their farming way more productive? Or should you import hordes of foreigners? Because that'll have no problems. Which one of these has more of a downside? Investing in your country or bringing hordes of foreigners and then question mark profit? I mean, I'm not a gambling man, but... anyway.
I'm going to need to speak to the Institute of Economic Activity for this one. I just can't figure it out.
We'll have to go to the next one, though. We'll get back to the deets. They're saying here, this wave is merely the latest in a series of arrivals since the 1950s that have shaped modern Britain. I hate this. I hate this with a passion.
Shaped modern Britain.
It's just, this is normal.
What would we do without the Indian takeaways?
Your country increasing by 1% foreign-born population every year, that's perfectly normal. Everything. This is just modern Britain.
Your country is defined by 3 things. Fish and chips, Indian takeaway, and Chinese takeaway. These are the 3 things Britain was built on.
The next one here, I mean, it's also just the data is a lie. I mean, I might just shoot myself if I have to hear this once again. It's just like, oh, this is normal. It's not. I mean, people honestly talk about the Windrush generation. You see what they are? A nothing burger. Complete nothing burger to the UK's foreign-born population. I'll read the data there, which is that, 40% of all of our immigrants came in the last 10 years. If we just said no 10 years ago, as the government promised, we'd have 40% less of a foreign-born population.
I do love that. Before 1951, 75,000.
Yeah. And this is before the newest data, which is that 600k per year. Great. Fantastic. Except actually it's not 600k, is it? Because it's not net, it's gross. It's 1.2 million. So add that 1.2 million there onto a couple of times. So what is it? It's probably like 50% of our foreigners came in the last 10 years now. But it's perfectly normal. We've always done this.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing new.
We were built on it.
Back to the deets. They're saying here, in truth, most immigration figures should be taken with a pinch of salt. Britain has a long history of being terrible at knowing the actual amount of migrants who are entering the country. Yeah. It's almost as if someone had been warning you about this. They write in here,
Are you serious?
This was particularly true in the days of free movement. At the time of the EU accession in 2004, researchers expected, the experts, the people who know everything, they expected Britain would receive a net boost between 5,000 and 13,000 migrants from Poland. A whole 5,000 people might move here, they warned.
Ooh.
It's 50,000 in a year. Then the EU nationals living in Britain were applying for settled status. More than 900,000 Romanians applied to stay in Britain. The government thought the total number living in the country was half of that. So it's not 900,000, obviously, it's even more.
Fantastic.
Like hundreds of thousands of them haven't applied to stay.
If there is ever a better reason to never trust experts, especially government experts, it's just look back at how many times they have been abjectly wrong about everything they have ever talked about.
So that statistic of about 1 million immigrants in the last year coming in, 1.2 million, sorry, that's probably, I don't know, 1.5? Should we just guess? Should we just double it? Because apparently that's what happened with the Romanians. They would just double the number the UK government
More than
thought.
double it. Add 2.5. There you go. Times it by 2.5.
In which case, what? I don't know, like 60, 70% of the immigrants in this country came in the last 10 years? But trust me, that's perfectly normal. We've always done this.
It's completely normal that enough are coming in that we actively can't keep track of them.
And this guy in the Times just misses the whole point. This is annoying me. He says, we like to think of ourselves as a welcoming country, but the opposite is true. Research by Patrick English at Exeter University has found that most of the past 40 years, Britain has had a negative view of immigration.
Probably the past 1,000 years.
No, like we've had a negative view of failure. Like our government's completely failed for decades to have any control on immigration, no matter how many promises they make. That's the failure. I don't think people would have a negative view of immigration if it was actually managed properly. You pushed for highest quality of life of the natives as your first point of policy. But they don't.
They don't. The people on the ground generally have a gut feeling when they hear governments talking about immigration. This will be bad for me. So we vote against it. And every time we vote against it, we get it anyway in larger numbers than we could ever have imagined.
He whines here that it was lowest in 2010, but now it's even lower than that. And it's going down even more. People are more and more upset. Cry. What do you think they're upset about? Failure. Failure is unacceptable. In the sense that most immigrants now need a visa, rather than being able to move here freely, Britain has succeeded in taking back control over immigration, he writes. It's just that the numbers have had a much higher amount than anybody expected. And this is just a lie. This is the thing we've pointed out. Because if you go to the next one here, the last link, skilled workers visa to come into the UK. Or what is it? £10.75 an hour. If you can get that, that's a skilled workers visa now. Great. Fantastic.
You can get close enough to that working most minimum wage jobs.
Minimum wage is £10.53, I think it is, last time I looked.
So if you can ask them, can I get 23p more?
You're a skilled worker, my friend.
Ooh, brilliant.
You're a scientist, engineer, and doctor. All of them, I'm told. Anyway, the news is that that's the reckoning that's coming to at least the mainstream, which is, hang on a minute, we have no idea what we're doing and we've screwed up the country. Yes, you do. I would hate for the result to be the kind of person who wrote that, who's like, oh, but isn't this a blessing, not a curse? No one agrees. But there we are. At least they're learning. Slowly. If you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content on the website, such as the Epoch series, this episode on the life of Lenin. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.